Hello everybody, it's Riffraff Hornhelm, and I'm back again with another presentation from the Dwarven Vault. And today we have another Fail Tale. Continuing our pivot on Fail Tales, this is something that is changed a bit from what we did before with the Fail Tales. Not that those won't be back, but this is more about some fails that we see within various gaming systems. It's not going to be all 5e or 1e or anything in between. It's really going to be just some obvious things that we think as dwarves are important to comment about today, because this being people reflecting on 50 years of the commercial release of Dungeons and Dragons. So, okay, without further ado, I'm going to tell you why in Basic Original and 1E, the magic user class sucked the most. How can you mean that? Yes, we all know they had hardly any hit points, couldn't wear armor, could carry a dagger or a quarterstaff. Horrible armor class. Horrible when it comes to the number of hit points they have. If you disturb them in any way while they're trying to cast a spell, boom, the spell doesn't work and it's lost. As a low-level player, you may have one or two spells. In melee, you can do virtually nothing. In the books, this is in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It says in the Dungeon Master's Guide that in melee combat, if you're a spell user, that you at best have a magical item. Otherwise, forget it. You're useless. Wow. What a great character, right? So, let's go back, way back in time, to Basic Dungeons and Dragons, first release. You could go to 4th level at 1 to 4 hit points for each level as a magic user. I can't remember now. I think it was either 3rd or 4th level spells that they first had in a separate booklet, and then eventually part of an expanded printing for Basics, it was included. That was it. And obviously the list was very, very short. So maybe you could do something like you could cast Magic Missile, and you could cast Identify. And if you were starting to go up a little bit, maybe you could add like Firefinger to it, or Pyrotechnics. Not very much. All very limited spells. Maybe you could do Invisibility. And of course, as a low-level magic user, the duration of spells that would last for a period of time was very low. Now, so, well, what are you going to do? Well, you don't want to stand too close to any kind of melee, because you're liable to get interrupted in whatever you're doing, and other than that, you're just trying to do pokey with a little dagger. And let's think about this as low level for a moment. That dagger's not going to be plussed. You're not going to be carrying around a wand or Ring of the Ram or something funky like that. It would be amazing if you even had one magic item, maybe a scroll or a potion. So what does this really result in? Lots of dead magic users. Plain and simple. They couldn't survive. In the first 4 or 5 years that I was DMing, without assistance, none did. you either had to provide them some kind of item that maybe allowed them to regenerate, like a reasonable ring of regeneration, something like that, to even give them a fighting chance. Otherwise, as soon as they went out with any kind of a party, it was very hard for them not to end up as toast. Yes, once you get past a certain point, a magic user is without question an integral and useful part of any party. But the game set it up to fail. That's just the truth. The mage was the one class that you would have the most difficulty surviving with. And of course, as a mage, your emphasis is really on intelligence. You're not usually a strong person or necessarily very fast. All things that kind of work against you in any kind of combat, whether it be creatures or other humans, dwarves, elves, whatever. It wasn't going to work very well. So really, when I look at a major fail in 1E, it was creating the most frustrating character of all. And that was the magic user. Now, other people will talk about things like the druid and whatnot, and I agree with that. But the magic user was the most frustrating because it was anticipated to be one of the most useful, powerful, and fun characters to play. If you played it by the rules, it was anything but. You were essentially in survival mode, and it made it that much more difficult to progress in experience points, to grow your levels, because you couldn't do very much to begin with. And if you tried to do anything, you had a better than 50-50 chance of ending up dead. So it was a huge fail as a class. It wasn't fun to play if you played by the rules. Now, what happened? Everybody changed the class. And it did get better. And it was saved. But the initial one, if you'd have gone only by the rules that were there, it wasn't going to be a lot of fun. You would have a very weak character that would take a significant amount of time to grow. And of course, that's another thing to look at as a part of this. Experience points were more challenging to acquire, and at the same time, you needed more of them to grow as a magic user. There's so many things that made this difficult. You couldn't just know spells. You know, if you became second level, you couldn't go to some place and buy the spells and say, yep, thanks very much. And after that point, you could read them and learn them. No, you had to study under another mage for X amount of time, and it took X amount of time for the level of the spell. And of course, you had to have all the constituent components, which I agree with. Spells should have components, or at least some. But it made for a very lengthy learning process and a very slow growth process. It didn't align well with any of the other characters. And frankly, if you did multi-class and became part magic user and part something else, like any compromise, it's really not a good one of either. As a magic user, you weren't very powerful and you advanced even more slowly. And as a fighter, you weren't as powerful as other fighters and advanced more slowly than other pure fighters that were around you. So really, the magic user to me was a huge fail, the way it was done in the rules. You ended up as a DM compromising with your players to make a more workable character through a variety of means. Either faster growth or giving them bonuses of additional hit points or whatever it may be, so that they didn't get squashed like bugs in the first day of any adventure. Now, like all things, magic use classes have changed from 1E to 5E, and it's probably one of the most dramatic and sizable changes is the number of different magical disciplines and character classes that exist now in 5E, and what their abilities are, how quickly they acquire them, and the variety of them compared to what was available in 1E. Now, in 1E, there were very few people who had the wherewithal to develop a character from level 1 and have them survive. Offhand, I can only think of one or two that survived long enough to make it to like 7th, 8th level. By the time you get up to that level, you're generally in a much better place when it comes to survivability. Prior to that point, as a mage, you're still pretty vulnerable. Getting magical items certainly helps, but your innate abilities and your endurance and resistance and things like this are not very good, generally speaking. Okay, I think it was a horrible way to take care of the class. I think it made it way too weak. I mean, really, the bottom line is that a mage from the early days was very desirable. Everybody wanted to play a wizard of some kind, but was really almost impossible to play without getting yourself killed in the process or feeling like you accomplished absolutely nothing. A very frustrating character to play in the early days of Dungeons and Dragons. Even a cleric felt more satisfying, I think, than playing a mage, because at least you could hit things with a stick or a mace. You know, you could do something to attack, and you could wear armor. You could survive. But a mage, you were a walking victim, just an accident waiting to happen. So not the most fun place to be if you are somebody who's interested in playing a mage in 1E. It did get fixed. I promise you, it did get fixed. Not completely, but a big, big, big improvement over how they were initially introduced. But that's a subject for another video. And I really just want to get across to people that, contrary to popular belief, Dungeons and Dragons with the nice little TSR wizard in front of it, if you played a wizard, you were probably not a very happy player to start with if you followed the rules. That's all I'm saying. So, hope you found this subject interesting. If you did, leave us a like. Let us have a comment. Consider subscribing, share with your friends. But most of all, come back and see us again in the future. Take care, everyone, and remember, dwarves rock!